Orleans Saints podcast, presented by Rouse's Markets. You'll hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and writers that cover the NFL daily. The New Orleans Saints podcast starts right now. Here are your hosts, Erin Summers and Todd Graffanini.
Welcome into the New Orleans Saints podcast presented by Rouse's Markets. Erin Summers here, along with Jeff Nowak, the Saints sideline reporter for WWL Radio. You heard him all preseason, going to hear him all season, which is starting very soon. Regular season coming up, not this weekend, but the next against the Arizona Cardinals. And we finally have our starting quarterback.
Yes, we do.
It will be Spencer Rattler. How'd you take the news? It was kind of a tight battle. You were there for all of training camp, every practice. Once you found out, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that the way we found out was today, and we talked to Tyler, we talked to Spencer, and they kind of confirmed they didn't know. It wasn't a situation where Kellen was kind of gaslighting the entire media corps. I truly believe it was close, and they kind of battled over this decision, and I think they made the right call personally, and I had kind of through my own analysis of the situation landed on Spencer. Not because I thought Tyler wasn't capable of doing the job. I just kind of fundamentally believe that there's no such thing as a rookie quarterback who's ready to start week one. There are only situations where you don't have the luxury of having a guy sit and wait. I think that any quarterback, I don't care who you are, you're going to benefit from at least a few weeks of sitting at the NFL level. And all you have to do is go back to Jalen Hurts with Kellen Moore. He didn't start week one. You have a lot of examples of guys who didn't start week one that have turned out to be very good quarterbacks. At the end of the day, I also think Spencer did enough. I don't think he necessarily came out and put his stamp on it and made it so that you had to pick him, and I think that's part of the reason it dragged out as long as it did. He had a couple opportunities. I don't know if he necessarily, took advantage of them. If he had led one really impressive scoring drive against a touchdown drive against the Broncos, I think probably you would have come out of that saying he definitively won it. Instead, we had to wait a couple days. But I think this is the right call. I think this was the way to go. I think Spencer has the best chance to go out in week one and lead this team that's flying into headwinds to some success. So I think it was the right call.
Yeah. Here's what head coach Kellen Moore had to say about the reasoning behind selecting Spencer Rattler as their QB1.
Spencer Rattler is our starting quarterback. Really, really excited for him. He's done an awesome job this offseason. So he's just been consistent. He's made some really good decisions throughout this whole entire process. And his ability to make plays with his arm and his feet have certainly shown up. And so I'm really, really excited about Spencer. He's earned this opportunity. He's going to do a tremendous job for us. At the same time, we're really, really fortunate. We got Tyler. Love the development that he's had over the course of this entire offseason. He's done a number of things for the first time in his career, just navigating that. And I think that's an important aspect when you're a younger quarterback, to let the whole process play itself out. I thought he capped it off with just an excellent performance against Denver on the last preseason game. I thought he did a really, really good job. And so I'm a big believer in just the importance of developing quarterbacks, developing them the right way. There's a process for both of these guys. Give them the space to develop, and we think we got two guys that are going to have great careers for us. And so, obviously, we're excited about this process. It's never easy. They made it really, really hard because they were very, very close. But we're excited for Spence, and Tyler's in a great position to continue to develop, and we feel like we got some depth in that room, which is really valuable for this league.
Coach Moore did emphasize a lot the experience factor that Rattler has. He did start 6 games last season. Although we didn't get the results that you might have wanted in those starts, there were not a lot of people on the field around him to support him. So that was a tough situation. I don't know if it played into the evaluation throughout training camp, but the idea that he has been in a real NFL game versus Tyler Shuck, who Coach Moore said, needs to develop some. I do agree with the experience factor playing into this.
Yeah, no, there's no question. And I mean, obviously 6 games, you'd like to have more experience for your starting quarterback. You'd like a few of those games to have gone better. But, I'll say for Spencer, for a guy to go through what he did last year and to come out the other side and look like a guy who still has some confidence, that's impressive on its own. I think that tells you a lot about who Spencer is as a player. I mean, that Monday night game against Green Bay, that could easily just destroy everything like the bedrock of what you believe in yourself as a player. And, whether it affected him more than he let on, like I haven't seen a guy playing scared out there. And frankly, I don't, if he got through that, it's not going to be more difficult for him this year than it was last year. He's at least going to have some pass catchers, some semblance of a healthy offensive line. Playing with Eric McCoy in and of itself, I mean, that's a huge advantage. Eric is the best offensive lineman on this team, and I would argue he's the most important player to this offense. So, no, I mean, I think that his ability to go out there and kind of just be a steady hand is valuable, and that's why I think from the beginning he just kind of, I don't think they gave him a head start, but it just felt like he started in front in the sense that you had to give someone the first reps of the week, and he got them. You had to start someone first in the first preseason game. That's why you went with him. And he just kind of maintained that edge. And I'll say for Tyler, like the first couple weeks were rough for him. Yeah. And he'll admit that. Like he was swimming. And I thought from where he was then to where he finished the preseason, he made great strides. And I feel comfortable when he does get in that he'll be ready. So now, I mean, like this, it's tough to look at this season and predict great things for this team. Again, there's a lot of headwinds you're flying into, but I don't know. I think there's a scenario where you come out of this feeling like you're in a good quarterback situation. And I do think that Spencer gives you the best chance to succeed at this time.
Rattler said that he came in confident that he was going to be the guy. And I think that's the mentality that you have to have, that you're going to win this quarterback competition. And then in talking to Tyler Shuck, hours, maybe not even after he found out that he was not going to be named the starter, he said that he is still going to compete every day like it's still open, and that he still has a chance of taking it back because that's just how he's built. And I think that is going to create a healthy dynamic between the two. They're going to continue to push each other to be better, and it's what they've done all preseason.
Yeah, and I think it's just about the progression, right? Like you can't grade this season on the win-loss, and obviously that's tough to do. But I think, regardless of what happens through the scope of games this season, you have to look at it and say, okay, where are we with the quarterback position? And do you have the pieces that you can keep building with? And yeah, I also appreciated that answer from Tyler, because I just kind of asked him like, hey, do you have to flip a switch now? Like you were competing for the starting job all preseason. Now suddenly you're the backup. And he's just like, yeah, I don't really look at it that way. I look at it as I'm still competing to get better and better. Because, and let's face it, like the odds that Spencer goes in there and starts all 17 games, whether it's because of injury, whether it's because things aren't going well, like they're very slim. And I'm rooting for Spencer. I hope he does go out there and play all 17 games, because that'll mean things went well. But if I'm Tyler, like I have to be ready if and when that job becomes available. And I like his approach. I like his mental approach. The thing I like most about his preseason is not that it went perfectly. It's that there were bad moments. There were 2 really bad turnovers. There was a pick 6 against the Chargers. There was a sack fumble against the Broncos. The next drive after both of those plays were touchdown drives. Yeah. Right? And that's the type of personality trait, player trait that, great quarterbacks have bad plays. Great quarterbacks have bad quarters, bad halves. But what separates a great quarterback from a backup, okay quarterback is they don't allow that to define their game. They bounce back. They don't unravel. They lock in. And I think seeing that from a young player is, if nothing else, gives you a little confidence that he is on the right track.
Yeah, and I think that he is going to continue to improve at a pretty rapid pace because, as you mentioned, you saw Shuck doing that throughout training camp. If you would have looked at this week 1, everybody would have said it was Rattler hands down. But it did ebb and flow throughout camp. And once, even listening to Doug Nussmeier, he said that you thought somebody was going to run away with it, and then the other player bounced back. Yeah. Now we know it is Rattler. Coach Moore said they're going to ride with him. They're going to be behind him. He is the guy. We do not have Jake Haener anymore. He is the 3rd quarterback. He got waived. I don't know if he ends up back here on the practice squad. I don't know if somebody else will pick him up. Moore has said that he would like there to be a path for all of these players to make it back on, practice squad in some capacity if they don't have another option, and that Haener is one of them.
Yeah, and we're sitting here right after cuts. We don't exactly know how it's going to play out. The Saints traded for an offensive lineman. You know, like there's going to be moves. I don't think that the 53 we see right now is going to be the 53 by week 1. I think you still need to add depth at a few spots. You know, there's players out there, even quarterbacks out there that maybe you look at as a waiver claim. And maybe, you know, it's funny, like a couple years ago, they cut Ian Book, and I would have said, I don't think anyone's going to come and claim Ian Book. And then the Eagles swooped in, and he was gone. So it's not a guarantee that even if they want him back on the practice squad, they can get him. He could also choose to say, hey, I'd like to find another opportunity. And I wouldn't blame him. You know, it's never really worked for him. Like he got here and, you know, he had the suspension early in his career, and that's tough to deal with. And then year 2, you draft Rattler, he's competing. This year you draft Chuck, and he's kind of the odd man out.
He had the oblique injury.
He had the injury. It just, you know, I wouldn't be stunned if he's like, you know what, I think there's greener pastures for me somewhere. But I do think there's going to be a third quarterback, and whether that's Hunter Deckers, you bring him back. You know, Easton Stick is a player that the Saints are familiar with. He got cut by the Falcons. That's a guy you could bring in. So, you know, I think there's going to be a third quarterback. You're not going to sit here with just those two, but it's just tough to say who that's going to be right now.
I know a lot of people want to say, well, Taysom Hill can be your third quarterback, but right now, as we found out, he is going to start the season on PUP. So he is out for the first 4 games along with Foster Moreau. They're still working back from their injuries. A couple other players, John Ridgway and Barry Wesley, also on IR but designated for return. So that's good news. Landon Young, however, out for the season with that ankle injury that he suffered in the last game against the Broncos. He's going to have ankle surgery, so he is out for the year, it's just awful because he was somebody who was... He's just been here as the do-it-all, versatile lineman that you need, and forced, obviously, the Saints to go out and get a lineman from the Cowboys.
He's also just a good dude. Like, I don't know, you've talked to Landon. Like, he's a good guy. Like, you root for that kind of guy. So it's just you have to look at just they're people, too. And he's one of my favorite people in that locker room. So it really is a bummer to see that happen to him.
When you go through the rest of the cuts and kind of see how the numbers divvied out between the position groups, you end up with 6 receivers, which sometimes usually you see more often it's 5. So Olave Rashid, Brandon Cook, Cedric Wilson Jr., Mason Tipton, and Devon Vele. That makes sense with needing Cedric, another big guy that can help with special teams. I know they liked the first 3 with Olave Rashid and Brandon Cook, so we kind of knew that was the top 3 for that position group. But running back was one that was kind of up for grabs for a lot of preseason, and it ends up with Alvin Kamara, Kendre Miller, Velus Jones Jr., and Devin Neal. I think Devin helped himself out a lot by being able to play in the Broncos game. But then we don't have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Cam Akers, or Marcus Yarns anymore. So it's tough to see guys that have ties to the area go.
I really, as I went through my own projections, I was trying so hard to talk myself into like, how can I keep Clyde? How can I keep Clyde? But I just, at the end of the day, it's tough for me. I always go back to Boston Scott. It's like, if I can't guarantee that if I cut Devin Neal, he's sticking around, right? They tried to do that with Boston. He ended up in Philadelphia.
Right.
And I know the city names are kind of confusing there, but stick with me. Like, I think they would very much have liked to have Boston Scott on this roster for however long, and they just, they tried to get cute with it. He got taken away, and I think that's something that sticks with you. Devin, he not only played, I thought he played well.
Yeah, he did.
He averaged
really
5 yards a carry. He and Tyler connected on a really nice kind of broken play for a first down. And he's a really smart player. Like Kellen talked about this. Like, and if you talk to him, you'll know immediately. Like he operates at a high level for a rookie running back, and that's part of the reason I think he's picked up pass pro so quickly. And so to me, it was like, okay, Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Velus Jones, and I think Velus just offers too much in special teams, in kick return, kick coverage, and then he's just a guy with 4.3 speed.
Yeah.
That's hard to account for at the running back position. I'm sure they're going to try to get Clyde back on the practice squad. He's a vested veteran, so he doesn't have to go through waivers. So it's going to be, hey, do you want to stick around? Maybe you have a spot on somebody else's roster and you want to go take that. I think he'll stick around. I think he likes it here. I think he's won Super Bowls. Like, he's done it.
Yeah.
I think being back home is valuable to him, and I hope they can get him back because I think he had some juice, man. Like, I think if he gets out there, he can make an impact, and running backs get hurt all the time. Like, you need depth at the running back position. So that's a tough cut. It's probably one of the tougher cuts they had.
Yeah.
But I like Clyde. I think he's still got something in the tank.
Another position group that I think a lot of people were looking at because there were so many options and a lot of depth there was the edge rushers. Who is going to be behind Chase Young, Carl Granderson, and Cam Jordan? Fadil Diggs, one of your draft picks, ends up getting waived along with Jasheen Davis. Chris Rumpf is the fourth, which meant Isaiah Foskey gets waived.
Yeah, you don't see a lot of second rounders get waived on their rookie deals, and especially not in year 3. And that just tells you, it just never worked. Yeah, anytime you're getting the most snaps in the preseason, that's not a good sign. Like, you don't want to be the guy who's out there playing all game. You want to be the guy who goes in there for a couple series, and by the second half, you got a hat on and you're cheering everybody on. That's what Kendra Miller, a guy who came to this camp battling for a role, like that was his job in the preseason, was to start and then get the heck out of there. Isaiah was out there playing the whole game. That tells you a lot. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised at all if some team out there is like, hey, you look at the pedigree, you look at the production in college, and they're like, I can fix him. So it's somebody to keep an eye on. But yeah, it's really cool for Chris Rumpf, who has a great personality and fits this scheme, is familiar with Brandon Staley, doesn't look anything like the defensive ends you've seen over the last 10 years. Like, he's kind of this lanky dude. But he made impact plays. And one of my harder decisions when I was trying to figure this out was, okay, Fadil Diggs, Chris Rumpf. I ended up going to Fadil's side because I think, one of the benefits you have with a drafted player is you get that 4-year contract in the 7th round. That's a very, very team-friendly deal for 4 years.
Yeah.
But clearly they liked what Chris offered to the point that didn't, they were willing to move on from the draft pick. And, is another guy that I think they're going to really try to get back if they can. Because it's not that he didn't contribute. Yeah, I think he was just kind of the 5th guy at a position where you're only keeping 4. He was a contributor on special teams. Like, I think he's someone you keep around. But, that's I'm interested to see how that group pans out, because I think Chase has looked great.
Yeah.
I think Carl has looked really good. Both these guys are playing a little lighter than they have in the past, and they're moving well. Cam, I think, has been kind of an interesting piece to move around. He's a guy you can put in there when you want to get a little bigger. But no, that's going to be a fun position to watch. And I thought what we saw in the one game they played as a group, I thought was impressive.
Yeah. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what everything does look like once you get to the regular season, because what we saw from the offense was so vanilla. And I think that will help Spencer Rattler be more successful, because things are going to be tailored a little bit more to what he does well. And they're going to help him with some of that pre-snap motion and everything, the RPOs that he's so good at. You look at the linebackers, and I think it was interesting. Jalen Ford and Isaiah Stallbird both did really well when they were out on the field. And they kind of pushed, I think, the coach's hand to let go of 2 players who had been here for a while, in Nephi Sewell and DeMarco Jackson, who this team had stood behind through injuries as well. What do you like about keeping Stallbird and Ford?
It's interesting because I looked at that and I was like, in another year, you might try to sneak an Isaiah Stallbird onto the practice squad because he's a special teams contributor. But then I look over at the guy who was on the opposing sideline for the preseason finale, and like Darren Rizzi, if you throw that guy onto waivers, he's going to be tugging at Sean Payton's shirt sleeve. Let's get Isaiah. He spent years building a special teams core of guys he scouted, he liked, he developed. And I think both Jalen and Isaiah, you would have had a hard time keeping them. Whereas like DeMarco, I feel like, you feel like the development has gotten to a point where, okay, he is what he is. I think it made more sense to move on from him, because I just really like those young athletic players at the linebacker position who, as they develop behind a Demario Davis, can contribute really, really well on special teams. And you see Isaiah Stallbird was flying around like a heat-seeking missile during the preseason games. It was impressive, because he's not a guy who was really on my radar to make this roster at the beginning of camp, but he made that the case very quickly. And he's converted safety in college, so I think the speed there is kind of a game changer, kind of like Velus Jones at running back. Like, is he exactly what you'd look for in a running back? No, but the speed is a difference maker. And I feel the same way about Isaiah at the linebacker spot. And I've said this a lot, like, I think the Saints linebacker room is the deepest position on the team. And like, you didn't cut DeMarco and Nephi because you didn't like them as players. You cut them because the other guys forced your hand. And like, Nephi is a guy that I wouldn't be stunned if he ends up in Denver with Dennis Allen. Like I think both these guys are NFL players. They're going to end up on rosters, whether they end up here on the practice squad or somewhere else. So I like where the Saints are at the linebacker position.
Yeah, I really liked both of those players, and it was cool to see Stallbird, after making the practice squad last year, get active in a couple games, get the opportunity to make the 53 this year.
Yep.
He was so excited just talking to him in the locker room. Rajon Wright in the cornerback room and Quincy Riley, both, again, young players that flew around. And I love Rajon Wright's story. The fact that he was hurt last preseason and didn't play all year, and the way that he came in ready to go, and it looked like he was determined that he was going to make this team. And I think he does add a lot to that room. Where do you think he fits?
Yeah, I'm glad that people, he's around so people can start saying his name correctly. I had to verify with him, and he kind of joked. He was like, yeah, my mom threw a Z in there for some reason. It's been messing with everyone my whole life. But, I think people kind of wrote him off after the fight with Brandon Cooks because it was like, what's this young kid doing fighting with Brandon Cooks? And I don't know, I think his attitude is a positive, right? Like he's kind of that agitator that at the cornerback position, you kind of want someone with an edge.
He talks a lot.
Yes, and he's physical. He plays physical. Sometimes his teammates take exception to that. But that's, when you're practicing against your teammates, there's stuff that annoys them that when you're going against another team, it's like, no, I kind of want that. I want you to kind of dig into that guy a little bit. And no, I'm glad that it wasn't a mirage because I felt like throughout camp, he was one of the more impressive players. And Quincy Riley, I think, has played well too, but he's a 4th-round pick. He's sticking around. He didn't need to do a ton to make this team. The investment alone is what was going to be there. But Rajon every day was a competition for him. And I thought he showed up. And, Rico Payton got cut. He dealt with an injury late in camp. And I thought Rico was a guy that came in and is like, I could see a huge year 2 leap for him. I don't know if he saw that. And I think Rajon throughout the course of camp really kind of made that his spot.
Yeah.
And whether he's a huge contributor early in the season, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a game day inactive. And then if you deal with some injuries, he becomes a guy you can throw in there. Ike Adam has played well on the outside, and I expect he's going to play a lot early in the season. No, it's a good story. And you really, that's what you hope to see during training camp is guys who have an opportunity really take it. What you don't want is guys just making it on default because no one stepped up and earned it. And I think Rajon very much earned that spot.
Somebody who earned maybe not their spot on the team because he probably already had it, but Ugo Amadi being that slot corner for this team after Alontae Taylor gets hurt, his versatility is incredible, especially for his size. He was in the backfield, blitzing like crazy. He's helping out on special teams. He can be a returner. And Terrell Burgess was the one they had put in that nickel spot right when Taylor went out originally. And very quickly, Amadi went and took that role.
And Terrell has a lot of background with Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
So you have to imagine, he came in and that was like, all right, you got this. Now, Terrell dealt with an injury, probably didn't help his case. But no, Ugo, talk about the blitzing. And I think the size is an advantage to him in the blitz game because I think it's easy to lose him behind the line. No, seriously, it's a joke, but at the same time, he can kind of hide and then, all of a sudden he's in your face and he's got to work on wrapping up when he gets there. I think, against Sam Ehlinger, he tried to have a highlight hit and it's like, just get him, just get him to the ground. And he kind of got sidestepped. But it was a great time blitz. He got there. It's got to finish. But no, I think Ugo is every year you go into matchups and the other team's like, hey, we're going to throw at that guy. But he seems to make the play more often than not. And I think he kind of takes exception to that. He had a great play, the first play of the game against the Broncos. He follows Cortland Sutton. He drags across the field with Cortland Sutton. He breaks up a pass. The Saints go 3 and out. One of the reasons is on first down, he was able to turn that into an incompletion when, I think they're throwing that ball because they're like, Ugo can't cover this 6'4" dude. And he did. And so that's the, I hate the word moxie, right? It gets thrown around all the time, but he's just a guy who plays like that. Yeah. It's a little guy who plays above his size and he's easy to root for because of that. Now, I still think they want Alontae Taylor out there. The drop-off is steep, even if Ugo plays well. But I think, he, again, you talk about guys earning a spot. I think he earned that role. And one that, could have very easily been handed to, it's like, hey, Brandon Staley was the guy who drafted Terrell Burgess back in 2020 with the Rams. Yeah. So no, Ugo, we know a lot about Ugo. It's not catching anybody here by surprise, but, this coaching staff didn't. So he had to walk in and make a new coaching staff decide he was worth keeping around, and he did that.
Yeah. He's a great guy to have around, too, in the locker room. He's always in a great mood, brings something fun to the table. So Spencer Rattler gets his first win, albeit it was preseason, last year against the Cardinals. This year, he's getting his first start of the season against the Cardinals. Is he going to get his first win?
I would argue that he's already gotten
regular season.
I would argue that he's already gotten his first win of the season, which is being named starting quarterback. So, because that's a big win. That really is. It is a big win. As a 5th-round pick, you are not guaranteed anything.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was able to come in and prove to this coaching staff he deserved to be out there over the guy that they drafted is a win in and of itself. It's going to be tough. I think it's a good thing that it's at home. They have an unscouted offense and defense, and that's going to help.
Yeah.
I heard people say, well, one of the reasons they're not naming a quarterback is because they don't want the Cardinals to have time. I don't know if the Cardinals really care. Like, they're going to have plenty of time to prepare for whoever it was, and it's going to be Spencer. But no, I'm hopeful. You know, I want to be pragmatic, and it's like they're not favored in any games this year. I think the only one they're favored in on the betting line is the Jets. So I can't, in good conscience, tell people to like bet on them, you know. But I'm hopeful. Like, I think that Spencer, you know, is a confident guy. I think he needs to play within himself, and if you can I think the defense is going to keep games low scoring. I think what the offense needs to do is put a number up. You know, and what they got into trouble last year is they just didn't finish off drives. There were too many drives that kind of started at the 40 and ended at the 40, you know, the other 40. And it was like you moved the ball, but you didn't get into scoring range. I think you've seen fits and starts of this offense figuring it out. I think if they can run the ball, and we haven't seen Alvin outside of that one snap. We were kind of joking, like, why isn't he wearing the tape? He's going in, and he played one snap and then left. You know, if they can run the ball, if they can take advantage of that and keep that offensive line intact, then I think they have a chance. But, you know, it's going to be tough sledding. That's just going to be the reality of this season, and we're going to have to wait and see.
Well, a week and a half, and we will at least know a little bit more. But today was a big day because we found out who the starting quarterback is going to be. And I think a lot of things are going to fall into place behind that. They have 2 days on the practice field. Wednesday and Thursday this week is part of that bonus week. And then like the real preparation on your opponent starts next week. So thank you so much for joining me. Enjoy your last free weekend for a while. And we'll see you on the sidelines again soon.
For sure. Thanks for having me on. I've been like, why don't they ask me to go on the podcast? I was very happy when you came over and asked me to come on. So, yes, thanks for having me.
Thanks. Anytime. It was great. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Saints podcast presented by Rouse's Markets. Join us 3 times per week on NewOrleansSaints.com, the Saints mobile app, or you can download the podcast on iTunes. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Saints podcast, presented by Rouse's Markets.